And still the undisputed UFC light heavyweight champion of the world.
Mixed martial arts has slowly but surely become one of the most popular sports in the world, combining all the best fighting styles to bring us some of the greatest knockouts of all time. And with the establishment of the Ultimate Fighting Championship in 1993, a range of competitors have now made themselves known as being the best MMA fighters in history. But who are these incredible fighters, and what made them world-renowned? Well, whether you're a fan of MMA or just want to know more about the contenders who have caused the sport to explode with popularity, stay right where you are, as we're about to take a look at some of the greatest fighters in all of MMA history. So strap yourselves in and get ready for a history lesson, as things are about to get interesting. But before we get into it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss out on any of the new videos we post. Number 10. Matt Hughes. The bottom on our list goes to the one and the only Matthew Allen Hughes, who is a retired American mixed martial artist with a background in ground and pound wrestling. Born in Hillsboro, Illinois on the 13th of October 1973, Matt is now 47 years old and was actually inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame and NJCAA Hall of Fame because of his impressive skills. Probably the greatest stint that Matt ever pulled off was an insane amount of 9 wins in 2001 alone, only to return to the UFC to knock out Carlos Newton with a slam to walk away with his first UFC welterweight championship title. He went on to have 2 runs as a UFC welterweight champion, through which he ended up defending his title a total number of 7 times. He is also known for picking fights with and defeating some of the greatest fighters around at that time, including Carlos Newton, Sean Sherk, George St Pierre, BJ Penn, and of course, Matt Serra. Considering that all of these opponents held UFC gold at the time, this is not a performance that should be overlooked. Number 9. Conor McGregor. Considered by many to have the biggest mouth in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, there is no doubt that to many Conor McGregor is considered to be the face of MMA. This is especially true when it comes to those who aren't familiar with the sport, from his respectable boxing performance in the ring against Floyd Mayweather. Born Anthony Conor McGregor in Crumlin, Ireland, back on the 14th of July 1988, this 32-year-old legend has on occasion informed the world that he is the best in the business, and while he failed to crack the top 10 position on our list, it must be said that he was at one point correct. His march towards the featherweight championship is still considered to be one of the most impressive stints in UFC history, with Conor finishing the stint off with an impressive 13-second first-round knockout of Eddie Alvarez. This also enabled the Man to become the first fighter ever to hold 2 UFC championships simultaneously from 2 separate weight classes, showing just how dynamic as a fighter he was. What truly causes him to hold the bottom edge of our list, however, is his lack of UFC championship legacy. While it's true that he held both titles, it must also be said that he never lifted a foot or fist to defend either one, preferring fame, fortune, and fighting words over and above work in the octagon. Number 8. Daniel Cormier. Daniel Ryan Cormier comes up next on our list and now describes himself as a retired American mixed martial artist and amateur wrestler. Born in Lafayette, Louisiana on the 20th of March 1979, making the man around 41 years old at the moment, Daniel did his best to solidify a spot amongst the legends of MMA. Following in the footsteps of McGregor, Cormier ended up holding 2 championship titles from different weight classes simultaneously, raising himself to the top of the heavyweight and light heavyweight categories. He then went on to topple incredible fighters in both divisions, against both Strikeforce and the UFC, defending his light heavyweight title 3 times and his heavyweight title once. He did, however, find it difficult to stay at the top for long, especially as the top light heavyweight in the world, with Jon Jones defeating him twice. Many have also claimed that his reign was more of a product of Jones' failings at the time, but it looks like as if Cormier is strapping down once more to take on Stipe Miocic in the days to come, so who knows, maybe he solidifies himself in the heavyweight category once more. We will have to wait and see. Number 7. Jose Aldo. Taking up the 7th position is the Brazilian MMA fighter Jose Aldo, who was born in Manaus, Brazil on the 9th of September 1986, making him 34 years old right now. Aldo became a bit of a legend on the scene when he ended up winning a grand total of 18 consecutive fights from the period of 2006 to 2014. In fact, some would say that his performance made him the greatest featherweight division fighter of all time. He took the title of WEC Featherweight Championship with a bang by taking down Mike Thomas Brown with a technical knockout, and then defended the title twice before being named the UFC champion after the WEC was absorbed by the promotion. Another 7 defenses later, and he lost his title of UFC Featherweight Champion to Conor McGregor, who was at his prime at the time. Aldo then went on to lose a large number of fights after 2014. But since he was exclusively fighting against the champions Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski, the world understood. Not fighting from the bantamweight heavyweight division, fans are keeping their eyes glued to what is coming next for the fighter. Number 6. Khabib Nurmagomedov. Born in Russia on the 20th of September 1988, Khabib Nurmagomedov finds himself in the next position on our list, with his current streak of 28-0 reaching a record-breaking high in terms of consecutive wins. The only shortcoming that the Russian has faced, however, has been his lack of statement wins. In fact, the only big name that Khabib has bested has been Conor McGregor. It also doesn't help that he won the vacant belt at the time by taking on Al La Quinta. Regardless of these shortcomings though, it must be said that his streak cannot be ignored, making him worth more than a simple mention on our list. Number 5. Demetrious Johnson. Demetrious Johnson takes on the 5th position as an American mixed martial artist that was born in Madisonville, Kentucky on the 13th of August 1986. Since dropping to the flyweight division, Demetrious has been able to round up an impressive 16-1-1 record and was for much of the time considered to be the greatest pound-per-pound fighter throughout the sport. He went on to become the inaugural UFC flyweight champion, a title he defended 11 times, taking on the moniker of Mighty Mouse due to his creative moves in the octagon and skill that enabled him to take down the largest of foes. Demetrious will forever be remembered for his time at the UFC. He now fights in the ONE Championship, where he has already gone on to win their flyweight Grand Prix tournament. Suffice it to say, we can probably expect more from Demetrious on the days to come. Number 4. Fedor Emelianenko. Next up we have the Russian bear himself, Fedor Vladimirovich Emelianenko, who was actually born in Rusbin, Ukraine on the 28th of September 1976. During the heyday of Pride, Fedor was next to unstoppable in the heavyweight division. The period from 2001 to 2009 saw him winning a grand total of 27 consecutive fights and taking the Pride Heavyweight Championship title for himself. He also went on to dominate some of the best fighters in the division, which included his incredible rivalry with Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira. He was, however, finally beaten by Fabricio Werdum in 2010. Unfortunately for many, Fedor's reputation was tarnished by never setting foot in the UFC, arguing that he was such a beast because of the poor matchmaking in Pride. But his stint while fighting in this dangerous division just cannot be ignored, making him one of the greatest MMA fighters in all of MMA history. And if you don't agree, feel free to let us know in the comment section down below. Number 3. George St Pierre. Taking up the 3rd position on our list is the one and only George St Pierre, who was born in the small town of St Isidore, Canada on the 19th of May 1981. The Canadian mixed martial artist went on to become the greatest welterweight of all time, winning the UFC welterweight championship twice and defending the title a grand total of 9 times. In fact, George has only lost 2 fights in the entirety of his career to both Hughes and Serra, but in sure champion fashion, he came back to defeat both fighters convincingly, showing that there was no one better than him in the division. George is then retired on top after a brutal and controversial win over Johnny Hendricks, returning to action 4 years later to beat Michael Bisping and win the UFC middleweight championship. He now considers himself to be a bit of an actor and has even appeared alongside Chris Evans in the Marvel Cinematic Universe by portraying the supervillain Batroc, the leader in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Definitely a name that nobody should forget anytime soon. Number 2. Anderson Silva. Taking the penultimate position is Anderson Silva, who was born in Sao Paulo, Brazil on the 14th of April 1975, making him 45 years old at the moment. With a 17-fight winning streak and 10 successful title defenses, it really shouldn't be a surprise that Anderson was able to take the 2nd position on our list. His striking game was simply put light years away from other men he was facing in the octagon, and when he was done with the middleweight division, he decided to move on to the light heavyweight class, knocking out some incredible fighters like James Irvin, Forrest Griffin, and Stefan Bonar. He might have reached his peak shortly thereafter and retired at the top of the world, but for years Silva was undoubtedly the best fighter in MMA, beaten in reputation only by one other man. Number 1. Jon Jones. Which brings us to, in our opinion, the greatest MMA fighter in the history of the sport, who is none other than Jon Jones. Formerly known as Jonathan Dwight Jones, he was born in Rochester, New York on the 19th of July 1987, making him only 33 years old right now. He lost only 1 fight throughout the entirety of his career to Matt Hamill, with the remainder of the blemishes on his career being his own fault. While he should have been on a run of 14 or more consecutive title defenses, Jones has been stripped of titles on a number of occasions because of both legal problems and failed drug tests. But when it gets to the octagon, there is nobody greater than him. It's just a pity that he can't get himself the help he needs outside of the ring. So, what do you think of our list of the greatest MMA fighters of all time? Be sure to let us know in the comment section down below.